I want to do a quick video about today's tragedy, massacre, really. At least 18 children are dead with multiple injuries reported after a mass shooting at the Robb Elementary school in Texas. State Senator Roland Gutierrez confirmed that the suspect in the shooting is dead, and he was 18 years old. Following the incident, children were taken to the emergency room at the Uvalde Memorial Hospital, per a statement from the hospital. And already, before the bodies are cold, even, this story has been politicized, just like with everything else in this country that is reported nationwide with any interest. And this is going to be a problem for the future. In fact, it's only going to get worse. And the underlying problem is actually not being reported. Already, we have proponents of the left who are saying that we need stricter gun laws. We have proponents from the right who are saying that we don't need stricter gun laws. Neither side is going to be generally correct on this issue, and neither side is actually going to illuminate the actual problem at hand. And it's an actual crisis that is always generally ignored, and that is mental health. And I'll read you from the Psychiatric Times that in the United States, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported that in 2019, 4.7% of adults age 18 or older reported feelings of depression, and 11.2% reported regular feelings of worry, nervousness, or anxiety. 40% of Americans with a 12-month history of severe mental disorder do not receive any treatment. Disorders were assessed by structured diagnostic interview using the World Health Organization's World Mental Health Composite International Diagnostic following DSM criteria. The analyzed disorders included mood, major depression disorder, dysthymia, bipolar disorder types, anxiety, generalized anxiety, panic disorder, agoraphobia, social phobia, and specific other phobias, post-traumatic stress disorder, and substance use disorder. And most of these disorders happen in the lower and middle income countries and states, where this figure can exceed 75%. That's coming from a paper written by P.S. Wang, and it is labeled Use of Mental Health Studies for Anxiety, Mood, and Substance Disorders in 17 Countries in the World Health Organization survey. Now, on top of that, you have the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, which has increased mental health care needs while simultaneously restricting access with an unknown long-term consequences, which are going to be a reverberating effect for the years to come due to the lockdowns and the closing of businesses and the loss of jobs and the resulting loss of rental apartments, in which we're going to see an exponential rise in homelessness in the next 2 years. From August of 2020 to February 2021, the CDC described an increase in the proportion of adults reporting recent symptoms from anxiety to depression from 36% to 41%, with the fraction reporting unmet mental health care needs increasing from 9 to 11%. So there's been a rise across the board in multitude of age ranges, even to children. Among children and adolescents, the proportion of mental health related emergency department visits for those aged 5 to 11 years old increased from 24% to 31% compared with 2019, when it was much lower. So according to the CDC, we have seen depression, even in children, rise 7% in a 12-month period. Now, we have another problem in this country regarding the behavioral crisis. Behavioral health has long been underfunded, underappreciated, and stigmatized, even understaffed, because the pandemic had only intensified this unmet need for services and made it even difficult, much more difficult, for individuals to get access to mental health care or behavioral health care. And at the same time, we have healthcare providers who have been on the front lines of the pandemic for more than 2 years. And they themselves, because of the overworkload, from the stresses of reaching or acquiescing to these draconian mandates, have also reported extremely high rates of stress and anxiety and exhaustion. So the people who are supposed to help people with mental health crisis are also going through a crisis. Now, we have seen a bipartisan issue regarding the urgent need to address the crisis. But is anything happening? Of course not. Because the US federal government doesn't care about your needs. Does that sound blatant? Well, it is, and it should be well known to the generalized American populace. However, because we're so desensitized to one another, whether through our adherence to fervent politics, fervent racism, fervent religion, fervent sexism, where you see each other as the enemy. You're not looking at the real enemy with a unified eye and saying that the federal government has created this vacuum for you. It wasn't your next door neighbor that increased the budget, the defense budget for the Pentagon. It wasn't your next door neighbor that didn't raise the minimum wage, which has been stagnant for the last 13 years. It wasn't your next door neighbor that basically authorized the use for military force in the Middle East. It wasn't your next door neighbor that gave a $108 billion military aid package to a ghoulish country like Saudi Arabia, so they'll use those US made weapons against the Yemen population, killing over 1 million people. I don't hear that in the media. Why is that blared everywhere? You know, the media loves to play this game of trying to separate the American people by politicizing everything. Need I remind you about an article written in 2019 where you could see for yourself every month 37 Yemeni children are killed or injured by foreign bombs. Where do those bombs come from? The United States. Why are we arming Saudi Arabia? Good question. You start asking those questions, you'll understand the bigger problems ahead that kill much more people. A tragedy in Texas, not to demean what's happening, but to show you the hypocrisy of certain people from the left and right. I have to show you the facts of the matter. At least 226 Yemeni children have been killed and 217 injured in air raids carried out by the Saudi-led coalition in the last 12 months of 2019. Where do those weapons come from? They come from the United States. Why are we weaponizing or aiding a country that facilitated or was a part of 9/11, that killed a US journalist, Jamal Khashoggi, that is led by a repressive monarchy, led by an equally repressive religion that is anti-ethical to Islam called Wahhabism, that actually during the 1980s and 90s funded these terrorist groups like Boko Haram, Al-Qaeda, Jemaah Islamiyah, Abu Sayyaf, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. Why are we allies with a repressive country like that? Need I remind you about the hypocrisy of the left because this happened under the Biden administration? And for you people on the right in the Trump administration, not to leave you guys out, need I remind you about this story? US supplied bomb that killed 40 children on Yemen's school bus. The bomb dropped on a school bus in Yemen by a Saudi-led coalition warplane was sold to Riyadh by the United States, according to reports based on the analysis of the debris. The August 9th, 2018 attack killed 40 boys aged from 6 to 11 who were being taken on a school trip, where 11 adults also died. Where's your outrage, America? No, that doesn't matter because it happened outside of your borders. It's happening in your name. And you don't do squat about it. Gun control? Tell me about it. It's a hypocritical position. Why? Because you people of the left tend to ignore an even more problematic issue. For example, May 28, 2022, Chicago shootings. 28 were shot, one fatally in weekend violence. At least 28 people were shot, one fatally across Chicago since Friday evening, including a man wounded by a security guard during a shootout in Millennium Park. 28 people shot, and that's just one weekend. Need I remind you that hundreds and hundreds of people have been shot in Chicago just this year, and we're not even at the halfway mark. The issue isn't the weapon. The issue is a mental health crisis that is ignored by the left and the right. It's been ignored largely by everyone, especially in the political paradigm in Congress. Yet you people continue to vote for these people. I don't feel sorry for you. I do feel sorry for the regular people. You're victims. You're victims of manipulating and brainwashing by the very people you vote to represent you. I'm not saying me because I don't vote. I don't vote for criminals, and they're all criminals. All of them are criminals. Now, they may get there without any preconceived notions of grandeur or sociopathy. No one starts out that way. They have well-meaning desires and agendas for the American people, but it's not the person, it's the system that is the disease. Because in order to survive in that system, you have to acquiesce to corporations, private military contractors, and foreign governments who don't have the best interest of the American people. Not Israel, not Saudi Arabia, not even your own federal government. And as long as we continue to ignore the mental health crisis, and as long as you continue to ignore the biggest crisis in the world that is affecting even children, then this problem will become a systematic problem of the American people. And the lucky ones will be the ones who are rational, who are not affected by anxiety and depression, and they'll be the rare ones. And for you people of the left who are basically hawking on the issue of stricter gun control or taking the rights of guns away from the American people, as long as we have people like this video I'm going to play in positions of power, then I support a fully armed public.
We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima. And you know, is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.